So hi, this is Raymond Flowchat from mxdwn.com. That's Mixdown. I spoke to a lot of great people over the years, and sometimes people throw the term multi-hyphenate around a little liberally. Ultimately, there is a sometimes actor who wants to have a barbecue sauce or a musician who wants to have a fashion line, but the person I'm speaking to today can most accurately be described as being the most deserving multi-hyphenate I think I've ever spoken to. Please join me in welcoming Felicia Day.
Hello, thank you for that auspicious and very nice intro.
I appreciate the vocabulary usage of auspicious.
I was a homeschooled nerd and I did very well in my SAT, the vocabulary section. I don't even know if they still have it now. I don't know the SAT now. So, but at the time they had vocabulary and I got it right.
Did you sit there reading the dictionary? Did you go and memorize the dictionary?
Well, I didn't do anything at my house. I was isolated from other children. So all I did was read all day.
Mm.
So I tended to know words but not say them out loud and mispronounce them. But that's okay. I enjoy being ridiculed. I'm on the internet, so
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Well, I was the nerd that read that would read the dictionary. I would sit there just literally just yeah.
Wow. Well, I remembered that I got the word Spartan wrong. That was the
Mm.
one I got wrong on the, and it was warlike. And the word Spartan means, severe and austere. But at the same time, Spartans were warriors, let's be honest. So I'm just gonna say there should be an alternate definition of that word.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it means a kind of a lot of different things. But
Exactly. Thank you.
but I'll give you a good one for your days ahead. Perspicacity.
What is that? Whoa, whoa, I don't know that one. Perspicacity?
Perspicacity.
What is that? What does it mean?
It basically means a higher level of understanding, but if you look it up to
Oh,
the cardinal definition is acuteness or keenness of perception.
perspicacity.
Perspicacity.
Perspicacity. Okay,
Yeah.
perspicacity. I'm learning Polish right now because my grandmother was Polish. She recently passed away. I'm like getting into her culture now that she's gone, which is strange, but a lot of the words are very strange and have a lot of Z's. And I just remember how hard it was for me to learn like a primary word, przepraszam, which starts with a P, by the way. Przepraszam. So I feel like perspicacity is probably not going to stick in my brain.
I'll put it in
I'll
the
try.
chat.
Thank you. Maybe if I saw it.
It'll help a little bit. It's a good one. It's a fun one to dust off when you want to impress people at
It is
parties.
a good one. Yeah, I'm already impressed. You've already set the bar high.
Wow, now it's all downhill from here.
Yep.
So I feel I am, probably a lot of people can say this, owe a certain debt of gratitude to you and your accomplishments because over a good number of years, you've made a lot of things happen in this world. And a lot of things exist, even sometimes directly because of you, or other times indirectly because of companies you founded and initiatives that you've gotten rolling. And so, kind of my entry point before we get into kind of the meat of everything here is for me, I've been a person who's lived for music, but also video games and to some lesser extent board gaming and through a good portion of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a kid who played Dungeons and Dragons, for example, when I was like 14, 15, and then had kind of a bad experience with it, kind of didn't really love it, kind of like got far, far away from it. It just didn't seem,
Oh,
yeah, it was kind of one of those hack and slash kind of things. I mean, I think you probably know, like in the 90s, people were sitting around rolling dice and you're just sitting there bored while someone's like,
yeah. I mean, it's like any teacher or anything, unless you have a good mentor or, someone to really introduce you in a good way. That's why nobody likes math, because math teachers in general don't instill that love of math in kids. And, it's just what it is.
and I mean, that's kind of what my entry was, right? Like I came back into this space getting very heavily in Dungeons and Dragons because of relics and rarities, which was, of
Oh
course,
yeah, that was because
yes,
of Geek and Sundry. Yeah, I was after I left the company, but yeah, it was something that I'm really proud that they made,
yeah.
and I was proud to set up. Some of the things in my life are my own creatives things, and those are the things, of course, I'm most proud of and most invested in. But at the same time, the fact that I've set up a lot of other people to take their own creativity and soar, and I had the platform that really allowed that to happen for a lot of people is like amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
mentorship and that kind of, I miss it sometimes. And then when I remember like all the meetings and all the logistics of it, I'm like, oh, the creative was fun. The logistics, not so much. So yeah. Well,
I
that's
think
wonderful to hear.
yeah, and I mean, that's what brought me back into this space, and then, of course, because Relics and Rarities only lasted so long,
I
then
know, man.
yeah, I stumbled back into Critical Role from there, and then got very big into Critical Role in the years that have followed since. So, kind of the thing that I wanna start in before we start talking about what you're doing with 3D printing, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you is, and you might get this a lot, so forgive me if this is a question that you've been having to field for a long time. But when you look at how that space has evolved, just take that one niche. Because when I look at your career and the things that I've been aware of for you, you're even responsible for opening my mind to little things like there's a game, I think it's called 10 Million. It was like a mobile game. And I only even know about it because you tweeted about it one
I
day.
did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess, there's a dirty word called influencer that a lot of people bandy around. And I guess I was probably one of the very first ones because I was one of the first non-tech people on Twitter. And I've always been very early in technology. The guild was like done, on strings and wooden sticks because, it was so early in the internet. And so I've just loved the space. I love innovating. I love being first. I love being a leader, and I love leading people to something that they might not know they love. And, that might not make me the best business person because it's not like I'm enjoying the fruits of all that setup. But at the end of the day, so many people have said, "Hey, I have a dice business because of you. I have discovered this hobby because of you. I discovered this, and this is my profession now." It's just so very gratifying. And yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs and left and rights. And I'm just so grateful to just be a platform and, quote unquote, influence people into discovering something new and enabling other creators to make a living off that. Because that's what's beautiful about this world. Everything doesn't need to be owned by big corporations.
No, and I mean, what's the kind of the follow-up there is, I mean, when you look at that space, and of course, Critical Role became its own kind of juggernaut and what they're doing, but now they're not the only player in town, right? There are
Yeah.
numerous companies making that kind of content. When you go back in your mind and you look back at that point where you were a part of helping bring Critical Role to the world, did you ever look at that and think, well, this is going to be the kind of thing that can sell at Madison Square Garden?
I mean, absolutely, definitely not that, but there are certain periods in my life I've done things that I was like, oh, this is magic, and this has to be seen by everybody. And as you say, yeah, it was my idea to do Twitch streaming. I started doing it on my own after I sold Geek and Sundry to kind of have my own thing again.
Mhm.
And I loved it so much. I was like, Geek and Sundry has to have their own Twitch channel. I love it. The community-based thing has always been something that really motivated me. And the number one thing we need is somebody playing D&D live, which I had never seen anybody do that, but I had been involved in D&D for many years. And I was like, this is going to be it. And because I was too busy to do it, with a group that I put together, because I was always going out of town, and I know that on Twitch regularity is necessary. My friend Ashley Johnson, she had told me like at a party that she was doing D&D with friends. I was like, well, they're voice actors. They'll be here every week. So let's get them in here. And of course, that was literally how simple it was. Now my company vetted. We went and saw the team work together, and we were like, this is magic. And of course, the first time it was broadcast, I was there watching, and I was like, I'm a fan. And when I have that spark of like, this is magic, I've generally been right. I hate to say it. I've done it with my music video, with the guild, tabletop, all the big things I've been involved with. When I saw it, I was like, this is it. And then I just threw myself and my company behind Critical Role because I was like, they deserve to be known by everybody. And now they've taken it and made it on a whole nother level that I couldn't imagine. Because I, again, am not a business person as much. I'm the creative and I wanted people to discover the creativity, but to be able to balance that with smart business building, they've gotten as farther than I've ever gotten or ever will get. And I totally admire them.
I mean, a lot of people take an approach when it comes to things like this where they seem, I don't know, determined to. I'm not saying anything specific about Critical Role, your arrangement to them, about like your business arrangement with them, but like people
I
in
don't
this,
have any business arrangements with them.
right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So
they
no,
do their own thing.
no,
Their own
no,
thing.
of course, of course. But I mean, I think a lot of people in this world look at like, how can I get my percentage? How can I get my comeuppance from that? And you seem to be a bit more selfless with a lot of this because, like you said a few times, even here yourself, like you're happy to be a part of making it exist, but you're not also sitting there going like, ah, I absolutely need to make sure in a capitalistic sense that I'm maximizing every cent I could have possibly gotten from this.
I mean, listen, if I were smarter, probably that way I would be retired. Yeah. But it's just not my skill set, it's just not. And at the end of the day, I do my own thing and I can keep doing it as long as I can do it. And the wonderful thing is Critical Role does involve me in their world, so it's not like I'm just looking at them soaring. And I've been a guest on their show, and hopefully I'll get to play with them again one day. And again, I have my own thing going on, and it's a full-time job, my own thing, and I have a kid, and I'm a writer, and I'm an actor. So like, I'm so happy when people get to carve out their part of the world, especially if they're not like having to use a big business to kind of take over and do what they want with their stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last thing I want to ask you, and then I want to come to what we're here to speak about today in the 3D printing world. The when we basically came to a lot of the things that you created and you were a part of, and a lot of the things that you did, I would say the internet felt like, and we are looking in the early 2000s and the 2010s, it felt like kind of a nicer, more kind of optimistic world, right? Things have taken darker turns in
Yeah.
the years since. And in that space, when basically things came to it, you're creating a guild and all the different things that you're known for. When you fast forward to now, when you look at the world as it is now, would you ever look at going back into that space and trying to create more content the way you did all those years ago?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was an amazing heyday, and there's
Hmm.
just not money out there to do it now. I mean, I certainly would love to be making independent web series again. But they're just, I mean, show me an example of one that's not like nonfiction, that's more YouTube centric, that's more like the stuff that we did at Geek at Sundry,
Hmm.
or, even smaller scale as far as like the production value and things. And that's where, I ran into a problem. I had these shows I wanted to make. I knew there was an audience for them. Millions of people watch them. Hollywood didn't really see that as an alternative for their platforms because they didn't think they were mainstream enough. And then the money sort of dried up as far as making those bigger web series. So I was like, I don't think I'm happy just making quick and fast content, and that's kind of where I stepped back, as well as for some personal reasons. So, it breaks my heart a little bit. I certainly have lots of creative ventures I'm doing right now in audio, 3D printing.
Hmm.
Um, I have a plan for a Kickstarter, hopefully, maybe for a movie in a couple years. So, stage plays. So, I'm working in a lot of venues, but unfortunately, video is just not one you could do because there are a lot of people who need to be involved. It's expensive, and there's nobody out there paying for it, really.
And that was a complaint that I've seen from a lot of creators in the space is, I mean, I think it's very liberating that you can make just about anything you want in the world right now. But the
Yeah.
thing that people tend to say is it's almost impossible to create the money for it, to make it happen, to make it look good and sound good. It's just not something where there's that kind of market for it.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately.
yeah, it is a sad state of affairs in that respect. And I guess it's a little different than, say, music, where in music, you can produce things for relatively cheaper amounts of money. You don't require a production crew, lighting, all the things that are necessary in terms of getting it done. So, coming to what you're doing in the 3D printing space, and I'll have to fully admit to you as I come to this point of the conversation, I'm about as a noob could be when it comes to this stuff. Of course, read up on it a lot in terms of ramping up for this interview, and I've been aware of it. It's not like I'm living under a rock, but I know not enough about how it works and the logistical challenges of it. So after all the things that you've done, why do 3D printing? Why come to this space and start creating things that people can then make on their own?
Well, I mean, if you look at my career, my most creatively involved areas are when new technology comes and introduces a platform or a format that hasn't been existing yet, and creators can move in and use those tools to make things, right? So I was on YouTube when I first started. I was on socials when they first started. I was on, Twitch not when they first started, but certainly like took it to another level as far as like the sort of business side of it. So I've always been early in technology to introduce creativity to it. In fact, my valedictorian speech at University of Texas at Austin when I got my math degree was finding the art in your science because I was also a violinist. So I guess technology and art has always been a passion for me. And I'd been wanting to get into the 3D printing world for a long time. And I'm very grateful for Things, this company, who is a great way to search for models that you want. But they approached me and they were like, hey, we want to create we want to help you design things for 3D printing. And because my kid had been 3D printing at her school, I was like super excited to sort of have my hand held a little bit to get into this. And the more I get into it, the more I learn, the more I make, the more I just make every day just because it's fun. I personally think this is an incredible creative tool for a lot of people. And you say you're a tabletop person. Well, I mean, what better way to prepare for a campaign than printing up, something the day before and painting it that morning to be able to have a D&D session, right?
Yes.
And it's just so fun. I've been working. The wonderful thing is that things helps me pair me with designers who are helping me do the physicality of all of it and design. Like, I'm not a designer, but I have a lot of ideas. I do all the mood boards. We go back and forth on iterations. Like, and this is the creative process. Like, this is my joy.
Hmm.
I never wanted to be in a finance meeting or a marketing meeting. I just wanted to be with a creator making either their vision happen in the way that we both see it or, my vision happen. Like, I put in a lot of time helping other people with their vision. And now I'm just concentrating on those places where I can create and collaborate with people. And that's what I get to do at Bangs. And hopefully some people try out 3D printing who have never tried it out. That would be my dream.
Yeah, that's kind of like for a layman like me who has a cursory knowledge of how it all works. When a person was coming to new to this, what would they
Mhm.
need to get up and running? Is there a specific kind of printer? Is a specific kind of materials? Like, what is the ink cartridge equivalent in the 3D printing world?
Well, there's a company called Bamboo, and they have really made the consumer-friendly printer that has tipped the scale of usability. I don't know a lot about the other kinds of printers. I will say
Sure.
that that's not something I have experience with, but everybody in the space said this is the game changer, right?
Yeah.
It's relatively plug and play. There's tons of resources if you have an issue. It's still fiddly. There's still a technical little engineering aspects to it, but it's not so much that you can't figure it out with a YouTube video, just like repairing something in your house.
No.
And then, the easy thing is that it's a file. So the things that I have on my subscription or for purchase it's a file.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have your own printer. There are maker spaces all around the country, around the world, where you can take a USB stick, have a file on it. Maybe you downloaded it for free. Maybe you got it for my subscription, whatever. Stick it in go over there and then connect to the printer and print it out. So for me, I want people to maybe dip their toe in. You don't have to buy a $300, $1,500 printer. You
Yep.
can if you love it. It's easy. It's fun to have in your house. But just the sheer act of being able to use this technology for your own creativity, something that you even design, you could bring to life and just take it down there. I think it's wonderful, and it's tools that I think a lot of people are going to be using in like 5 to 10 years, like maybe on a regular basis.
So the end result is plastic.
Well, yes, the bamboos are filament printers. So yes, it's plastic, kind of like a spool. You get a spool of plastic, all different colors. I have a beautiful array. I love it.
Mm.
And you can choose to multi-print or print, depending on what printer you get. Some of them have one filament on it. Some of them have four. Some you could switch them out, blah, blah, blah. But there are resin printers as well. So if you want to like a higher quality, more detail, especially minis, a lot of the mini figurines are made with resin. I don't use that because of the fumes. It's a lot more messy, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into that right now. I'm sure I will, but I don't have the space in my house for it now. So I'm sticking with filament, which is again the most user-friendly way to print things up. And it's really wonderful. You could use the file and tweak it yourself. You could change a file. You can increase the size. You could shrink it down. You can paint with it if you want to use different kind of filaments. You could paint it later with mini paints. It really is something that I've enjoyed with my daughter because I've printed a lot of things together and we've painted them. And I don't know, we're having fun together creating.
On the stack that you work on, how long from stem to sternum does it take for one to come out? Like once you said, okay, go print, how long does it usually take?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like a little mini figurine will be, 1 or 2 hours. I have a little axolotl on my page that's 30 minutes
Hmm.
and it bobs its head around. It's tiny, but if I blew it up, which would be easy in the software, it could take several hours. And I printed a dragon that took like 8 hours. And if you want to there's some prints that you're doing huge, like helmets, cosplay, that could take days, right? You're
Right.
printing each piece up and you're putting it together. So it really depends on the size, really, because the machine is literally like melting plastic and forming it. And
Mhm.
sort of rings almost. I mean, it is rings, it's layers.
Yeah, because it's kind of going like this up and
Yeah, exactly.
wow. And I mean, when you were creating these, I know you were working with designers in terms of the styles and the ultimate, I've seen everything that you have up on the store in terms of like what your Felicia Day 3D stuff is. And some of it's jewelry, some of it's figures, some of it's models, and some of it's like the axolotl, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, just
toys.
little
Yeah.
toys. Exactly. I have to imagine when you were working with the designers on this that, I mean, there's got to be an immense trial and error process because, I mean, you got to make sure that the end result actually looks right when it comes out the other side. And if it takes 2 hours for, I know some of them are as little as 30 minutes, but if
Yeah.
it takes 2 hours, I have to imagine you guys had to run this a lot of times to make sure they looked right.
I mean, the wonderful thing is the designers do that for me, and they have like dozens of printers, and they'll put on the print. They're working on many things at once, and they're just incredible. But the what you point out something really smart, especially if you're not, tweaking things, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have issues, you know, spring up. This color doesn't look good with this. And at the end of the day, it really is a trial and error to really make something new. And but you just try it again. And it's taught me a lot about creativity and writing. I started out being such a nervous writer and I wanted everything to be perfect. The first time I put it down, I had some perfection syndrome and all this anxiety. And the older I get, the more comfortable I am in knowing that the first layer I put down is not the end layer. But the iterative process with these designers who are so brilliant and so determined to get it right, and so determined to be like, oh, yeah, this screwed up. It's just the next step to where I get. It's a wonderful philosophy. And I think it teaches us all about like process of creativity and artistry and how, you shouldn't be perfect. Like there's no way to be perfect. Everything's just a step on a journey. And I just love that philosophy.
When you're working with the designers, are you in like 3D modeling programs? Are you specifically handling like looking at what does this look like in a 3D rendering?
No, no, no. We go down design phases and we do sketches, they work out. And then, yes, I see the renders and like, the faces on the guild minis. I'm like, okay, let's tweak this. Let's change this. The robe isn't quite right, all that. As far as the jewelry, I will come, we're doing a special thing for July around my birthday, which is the 28th, but we have a Pride keychain now
Oh,
that's wonderful. We're giving it away. Things is donated to charities if you download it and things like that. So for July, I'm working on something, and I basically spent a couple hours searching the internet for inspiration. Got a whole like lookbook together, and I gave it to the designer, and I'm like, hey, okay, what inspires you here? Because for me, the designers get full credit. They're on the thumbnail. They are a collaborator with me. I'm not going to take credit for something I didn't do, and so we're truly working together to kind of get the vision that I'm like, I would wear that. And then they would be like, I'm proud of designing that. And we're happy together. That's really the sweet spot of what we get to do at things.
I got to tell you, it makes my brain melt. And I'll tell you why, because I'm good at a lot of things. The one thing I'm not good at is making things look pretty. I can't, I cannot design things. I mean, I can lead a designer, I can work with a designer and I can give them guidance and feedback and say, oh, I think that looks good or that. But I mean, like if I had to think about something in a 360 degrees, forget it.
I
I'm
am not
done.
there. I mean, listen, I'm not in the program myself, although I would love to figure it out just because, being a filmmaker, I've done every job on a set, right? And my knowing all the jobs makes me understand other people's processes better
Yeah.
so that I can help work with them in a way that optimizes what they know and recognizes their limitations and brings out the best in both of us, right?
Mm.
I would love to be able to design something. I mean, but I am not necessarily a visual artist. So, this is the one way I can do this and get that sort of aesthetic out there that I love. I mean, we have these D20 horoscope necklaces, and that was totally one thing that got me so excited because I love horoscopes and witches and tarot and all of that.
Mhm.
It's just fun for me. It's like
Mhm.
role playing. And the fact that we were able to come up with this talisman and we're working our way through all the signs and everybody who has a sign can wear one, it just makes me so happy. It is truly a collaborative process. And you're right, like, you can't be good at everything, but you can know what you bring to the table. And
I
that's where
noticed
I
that
am.
a lot of these were, of course, they're for sale individually. People could buy a particular model and print it individually, but then you
Yeah.
also have a subscription service. And so I wanted to ask you why you were doing a subscription service with this. And of course, there's kind of a sub question there. And the tier two that you had available has a, I don't know if it's forever, a commercial license that's attached to it. I don't know how forever is forever with that
Well,
commercial
it's
license.
monthly. It's a monthly commercial license. So if
Ah,
you want to take these and print them up and sell them at a con, it's just a flat fee a month, just like the other subscription. Things is sort of a Patreon. The whole platform is like a
mm,
Patreon for 3D printing designers.
okay.
So that's kind of their business model, but it's very affordable. You can buy one for $6 or $7 one file, but then
Yep.
you also get five for $10 a month. And the good thing is that it is one of those, there's always something new. Every month we're doing new drops. We're working continuously throughout the month to offer new things. And if you come in July, you see something we dropped in May that you really like, you can put it together. You put the package together.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that people stick around supporting the project, which will now allow me to keep doing it, but also just always find something new that they want to print up and try out.
And I mean, is it something like, is there a hesitance in allowing people to commercially make something like this available? So, I mean, if you put a
Yeah.
model together and someone goes, they can turn around if they have a storefront and they can put it up in the store and sell them. Is there hesitance in that in terms of like, once again, you don't know how that scales, right? Places could be selling thousands of them, but you're obviously, as we discussed earlier, a very giving person. And
Are
you're
you concerned for me? Are you
oh
concerned this is not a good deal for me?
no. I just want you to make the ends you deserve. That's just me
I appreciate you.
in my capitalistic heart. But
I
I mean,
mean, again, we're in a very niche of a niche. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, if it feels foolish, I guess we could reevaluate. But that's sort of the model in the space where
yeah.
people will allow, because they're doing the logistics, they're putting the materials in, they're doing the selling. I'm not having a booth at Comic-Con. I did that. Believe me. I don't want to go back to that unless we have somebody else like taking care of all of it. I put together IKEA shelves to sell t-shirts many a day. That's one thing I'm like, let's leave that in the past. So I'm just happy to get these out there. I mean, I really am. I was so delighted the other day at a convention when somebody came up with a codex they printed out and painted gold to make a chess set out of when all the characters come out. And I'm just like, I love putting things out in the world that are beautiful. And if I can just keep doing that, yeah, maybe I'm not retiring, but early. But if I can just make stuff, I'll never retire. I mean, my work is my love, and if I could, creating, working with people who are creators, that's what fuels me.
And I mean, how many, given that some people can sign up in a subscription basis, how many of these do you anticipate are you're going to have coming out every month over the next few months?
So we have a minimum of 5 models every month, but we're licensing more. We are, this month I think we had 7 that came out. There's a free one if there's a Pride keychain
Mhm.
that has a rainbow on it and a Vulcan hand thing, which if you are a Supernatural fan, you might recognize that from one of my characters. I wanted to do something to just give back, have people celebrate Pride together, and yeah, so it's a wonderful project that I get to just fluidly create every month. Like next month, I'm like, what are we gonna do
Yeah.
for July? What are we gonna do for Halloween? It's
Mm.
really exciting. It's like Geek and Sundry, but it's more manageable scale for me and less business.
Probably quite a bit less meetings and, in terms of having to set up shows and the production meetings that go behind that.
Yeah, I miss it. It's always a bittersweet thing when you move on in life, but we only have so much time, and I'm a mom now, and it's really important to me for me to be there for my kid, and
Yeah.
there's no way that I could do all the hyphens at once and be good at them. And there's one hyphen I really want to be great at, and that's being a mother and a creator. So those are the two things I have to prioritize.
Well,
And yeah,
you have me fooled for sure because I would say all the hyphens look to be very well executed at any given point.
I consider my life like a turn-based RTS, tower defense thing.
Okay.
So like I see the problem. I see all the projects coming and I'm like, okay, I'll do this. So I pace myself like a tower defense. That's life.
I mean, I could say that I sympathize in that respect because, when I set out to do what I was going to do with my world and I wanted to create an entertainment magazine. And of course, at first it was a music magazine and then we expanded into movies and games and television and all this other stuff. I never set out to myself when I created that to be like, oh, I want to answer 3,000 emails a day, right? Like I wanted to create content. I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
I wanted to help basically, because we started with music, I wanted to help show the world the best music they could possibly hear. And then
Yeah, yeah.
and of course that became movies and games and TV as well. So it's how do I show them the best movies, the best video games? And getting into the business of it, it became 4,000 emails a day, and that's what it's
Yeah.
been ever since.
No, no. I mean, it really is sort of a champagne problem where you complain, you do something that you love, it turns a little bit into your business, and then you realize what the business requires. And that's kind of what happened to me too, you know?
Mhm.
And you spend unless you're able to delegate and have the budget to hire people to sort of compensate for the things you don't want to do
Right.
because it's taking away from what you actually do, and only you can do. That's really hard. It's hard to be popular. It's hard to get successful. It's hard to know who to hire to help you with that. And, you're right. That's kind of what happened to me. It sort of like started chipping away at my own creativity where I wasn't making anything on my own channel for years. And I was like, what am I doing?
Right.
So you're right, but this is what happens in life. And as long as you're reevaluating and taking a right turn or a left turn in a direction that gives you fulfillment, you're fine, and just surround yourself with good people. That's the end of the day. That's the key.
That is the entire goal. Now, before we wrap up here, is there any in terms of the Felicia Day 3D models that are coming? Is there anything that's not released you want to tease right now? Anything that's coming that fans might be interested or excited to know is coming?
Yeah, well, I have a special birthday thing that I'm designing right now that I'm so excited about.
Mm.
It's a piece of jewelry because, of course, I just love jewelry. And we also are going to be doing the Axis of Anarchy. So if you would like the Guild bad guys, we're going to be prepping to do that after next month, and I'm very excited about it.
Who
So
doesn't
yeah,
love the bad guys?
I mean, Will Wheaton himself posted on my thing. He's like, please make a fox. I'm like, I was going to ask you, but thank you for volunteering. So yeah, I think you're going to have an evil Will Wheaton mini pretty soon coming to you.
Perfect. And I
Well, it
think
won't look like Will Wheaton. It'll be a fox. It'll be a
right, it'll
fox.
it'll be his avatar.
It'll be inspired by him. Yeah.
His personality and his visage into 3D render form.
He's not fox. I promise you. He's much lovelier than that.
So to end off here before we run out of time, and because once again, coming back to all the hyphens, is there anything else in your arena coming up that you want to tease? Anything else that you're working on that people might want to know about? I know that as much as this may be your focus, there's always other things going on with you. There's always other
Oh
things you're
yeah.
into. So is there anything else specific? I know that a lot of times things like this can be, kind of NDA'd and you can't talk about them. But I know that more recently you were a part of Stray Gods when that came out. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that's coming up next for
Yeah,
you?
I mean, if you're local film festivals, I have an indie film that I starred in called Tim Travers and the Time Travel Paradox, which is playing a lot of places, including LA, at the end of this month, which is cool. I have a couple of stage plays I'm working on developing that I'm very excited to try to get done by the end of the year. And you're right, I have a couple of NDA things I've hosted, acted in that I can't talk about right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm always writing, I'm always acting, and I'm always just doing.
Also,
So
always hyphening.
always hyphening.
See, there's a new show for you that could be always hyphening.
Yeah, that should be a t-shirt if I ever was smart enough to open a store on my website.
Or, some kind of branded, 3D printing thing. That's something you could do.
Listen, do you want to be my manager?
I am available. I promise to charge a modest percentage.
Exactly. Okay, great. We'll talk.
All right, Felicia Day, this has been a blast. I'm so happy to have spoken to you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking about my projects. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. And I hope you enjoy this wonderful, not overly hot, gray day LA weather.
Yeah, exactly. Let's enjoy our 70 degrees.
I mean, as long as it lasts, because the heat wave's coming in, September, October, usually.
Listen. You know that it's not that hot here.
I mean, when my wife and I moved into where you see me sitting right now, it was 100 degrees every day in April.
Okay. Well, I'm from Texas, so it's a wet heat there. It's
That,
worse.
that's true. And plus, I'm from Connecticut, and Connecticut's like the land of humidity.
Oh yeah, forget it. Forget
Uh,
it. I'll never live there. I don't want to be moist.
oh
All
my
right.
God.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Good to speak to you.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.